Hi, in this video we want to learn quick sort. In the programming we have a lot of sort like bubble sort, quick sort, heap sort and etc. We have learned bubble sort before. What's the difference between bubble sort and quick sort? Quick sort can sort the array very faster than bubble sort, and as a result our program can be run faster. In this video we first learned philosophy and algorithm of quicksort by animation, and after that we go to IDE environment and learn the philosophy of it there. In this animation, first of all, we have to choose pivot. But what is the meaning of pivot? The pivot or pivot element is the element of a matrix or an array, which is selected first by an algorithm to do certain calculation. By default, we choose the last element of the array as the pivot in the quicksort algorithm. After that, we select an element I and j, put I in the index n-1 and put j in the first element of array. After that, if the index on which j is located is greater than pivot, we move forward j one index and do nothing. But if the index on which j is located is smaller than pivot, we move I forward by one index and then we swap element I and j together. Finally, our array is divided into two parts. It is divided into the elements before the pivot, which are smaller than it, and the elements after the pivot, which are bigger than it. Now we'll repeat this process again and again until our array is sorted. After the animation, we come here in our IDE environment and the quicksort code. In the first line, we have a swap function. What's the work of swap function? This function take an integer array and two indices I and j and swap the element at these indices using a temporary variable named temp. Look at the animation to know what's the function work. Here we should swap 8 and 2. and the number 2 and 8 are swapped. In the second function, or the partition function, we have three inputs. The first input is the name of our array, and the second input is our zero index, or the first element of the array, and the third input is the last index of the array, or the pivot that we specified. Now in the pivot function, we specify that it is the last element of the array and element I, which is located at low -1, and element j, which is located in the first index of the array, as shown in the animation. Now the elements of the array starting from j we compare with pivot. If it is smaller, we add 1 to the value of I, and then we swap I and j. The third part, we have the quicksort function, which has three inputs. In the last part of the function, this function has been called twice, which represents the recursive function. As you can see, we have two recursive functions. One for sorting numbers smaller than pivot, and one for larger than pivot. And as it is clear in the animation, this work continues again and again until the array is sorted. In the next step, we have a print array function, which we shown the index of the array, and in int main, we get the size of the array from the user, and here we get the element of the array and index of the array one by one from the user.